Hey, the problem with B2B marketing personas when you look them up on Google is that most of the advice is super generic. It's not really going to help you too much when you're doing this in the real world. So here's an example. Sandy Sanderson. Is Sandy Sanderson going to buy your products and services? Probably not. So if these are generic examples, how can we create realistic examples? Great question. So the first thing I like to do is I like to figure out, okay, who is my target buyer? And if I look at it, I look at it from three different levels. I look at it from the organizational level, department, and individual. So let's say we are a MarTech company. We're trying to sell marketing technology software to heads of marketing. So we might find different heads of marketing as an individual. Department is usually the marketing department, demand gen department, depending how big it is, and then the organization itself. So once we have a couple ideas, I want to go ahead and I want to type in marketing for DBS, for example. Let's say we're going to DBS. And I'm going to pick on Marco because I know Marco. So let's say we are trying to sell marketing technology software to Marco. What we're going to do is we're going to go quickly through and we're going to look at some of the content that he's currently sharing on his LinkedIn profile. We're going to see what kind of ways he describes himself in his about section, as well as his current role. And then once we have this information, what we're going to do is going to copy and paste this into a word cloud. Now you can just Google the keyword word cloud and you'll see something like this. It doesn't have to be the one I'm using. So once you go in here, you're going to go ahead and replace the information. I'm just going to copy and paste the information from here, as well as his current role. So once I'm in there, I'm just going to go ahead and delete. And I know based on this is only a one data set, I would do this with maybe 5 to 10 at least to start off with. But I can see, okay, what are some of the things that this person is focusing on? So it looks like they're focusing on content marketing, digital. If we do a command search and see what is media related to, focusing on digital media formats, cross-platform media. So this gives me a good idea in terms of what are some of the keywords, what are some of the things that are relevant to them. The reason this is so powerful because this is a real-life example. It's not Sandy Sandberg or whatever she's called. This is Marco, and a real individual who could be a potential prospect for my marketing technology software. So once again, I'm going to do this with multiple people, and I can go in here and say, okay, who are some similar folks? So check people also view to get a sense in terms of what are some of the other individuals that I could look up for inspiration. And if I'm doing this for banking, I might want to look at the companies all people also search as well too. So let's say I'm doing this for Standard Chartered, Citi, UOB, etc. So I'd look at it here and I say, okay, who are some of the marketing directors if I'm focusing on financial services, heads of marketing. So once you have information, like I said, you'll go ahead and copy and paste that information here. And the bigger keywords indicate the more common words. So the more commonly they're used, the more helpful it's going to be when you're building your personas. Now, that's if you already know who your target audience is. Let's say you're starting on a company and you have no idea. How would you go about doing that? Another great question. So I would look at who are my competitors currently using. So in this case, let's say I'm going to go with Braze. And I'm going to say, okay, who is Braze working with in the retail and e-commerce space? And they have a great case study here with Pomelo. Now, if I go in here and I hit Command F and I put quotation marks, there we go. I can see exactly who the client was. So if I copy and paste that into LinkedIn, bingo, there's Anthony. And once again, I can do the same exercise. So at Pomelo, let's see what he was responsible for. And then I can do the same thing with his new role. Just copy and paste this information in here because he actually has a lot of information. It's not always the case, to be honest. You'll have to do a little bit of digging in here. I'm going to hit go. And then now I get a little bit more insights in terms of what are some of the things that they're focusing on. So they're focusing on uplifts in conversions, improving maybe the media spend. And once again, if I see a big keyword, I can go ahead and hit Command F and say, okay, digital. What are they talking about digital? So they're focusing on digital marketing and transmedia, digital content. Let's see what else. Yeah, there's a couple of different examples. So once again, the more input you provide to it, the more this data set's going to become richer and richer. It's more this visual is going to help you out. So that is on the individual side. Next, you might look at department. So once you have inroads into some of these folks, you start reaching out to them, you're having meetings, you want to find out what are their KPIs as a department. What are they trying to achieve? Is it boosting awareness, demand gen? What are they trying to achieve? And you might consider, okay, what are some of the upcoming campaigns or initiatives they're already having? And then on the organizational level, we'll look at things like if it's a publicly listed company, I would look at their financial report and see the CEO statement. And I would just basically do the same thing. I would copy and paste it into this and say, okay, what are the keywords that keep popping up? The next thing I would look at is, if it is not a publicly listed company, I would maybe look at set up a Google alert. That way I know exactly when they are maybe getting funding or they're hiring or whatever it is. I get all kinds of news directly uploaded to my email regarding that particular company. So this is how I would do it for one particular business unit or geography. So let's say this is currently doing the research on the Singapore team, or it could be Southeast Asia. Now I want to replicate this same thing, and I can go ahead and I can copy and paste this model over here. Move it over a bit. And I can say, okay, now I want to move on to the North Asia. So I'm focusing now on China, Korea, etc. Now, once again, this picture may be a little bit different. There may be some parallels in terms of some of the things they're doing, but for the most part, Singapore and Southeast Asia and North Asia tend to be a little bit different in terms of how the way you operate. So you might want to tweak some of these things, but at least you have a structure in order to build a realistic B2B persona. So hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions, let me know.